Welcome to this week's edition of Uptown, the news magazine that keeps you up to date on news and events in our community. I'm Marcia Fingal. The Harlem Book Fair is coming to town. Save the date, Saturday, July 21st, in front of the Schomburg Center. Stay tuned for an electrifying poet. On Health is Wealth, we have some important information on osteoporosis, the bone disease that affects mostly women. Find out later in the show what your risk might be. We were at Saturday's celebration of Malcolm X's birthday, and we have the full story. Stay with us, and we'll give you the whole scoop. Bill Clinton is ready to unpack his bags at his new office digs in the heart of Harlem. Some people had mixed feelings about whether it would be a good thing for the neighborhood. And they tell our 125th Street Soapbox why. But first, let's look at some highlights in the local newspapers this past week. The major story in this week's New York Beacon is the filing of new evidence that could free death row inmate Mumia Abu-Jamal. There is now a sworn confession from Arnold Beverly, who says that he was hired along with another guy to shoot and kill Faulkner, who was considered a problem cop by the mob. Daniel Faulkner is the Philadelphia police officer that Jamal is accused of killing in 1981. New York's poor and immigrant children will soon have 27 fewer healthcare community clinics if the city gets its way. The Health and Hospitals Corporation is in deep economic trouble, to the tune of $313 million, and called the outpatient clinics a financial drain. Some of these clinics have provided uninsured children with free immunizations and asthma treatment for more than 90 years. It was also announced this week that Dr. Lorraine Hale has stepped down as head of Hale House. Hazel Smith writes a revealing piece on how the Daily News turned so many people against the charity and its leader. Smith admits that perhaps some things needed to come to light, but asks, where were the critics when these women were in the midnight hours, walking the floors, rocking babies born into the sins of their mothers? The Amsterdam News gave top billing to two major stories. After 14 years in prison, Charles Shepard and Anthony Faison were released this week, cleared of the 1987 killing of a Brooklyn livery driver. Faison said he wasn't bitter about the wrongful conviction and the lost years, while Shepard said he was just grateful to be freed. The other major story was the second-degree murder conviction of 14-year-old Nathaniel Brazil, who was found guilty of shooting his English teacher, Barry Grinnell, in Florida. Brazil was tried as an adult and will serve 25 years to life. It's more turmoil for radio station WBAI as protests continue from coast to coast to maintain free speech radio. Interim station manager Utrice Lead has come under severe attack for her firings and program cancellations. Next week, fired program director and Wake Up Call co-host Bernard White gives an exclusive interview to Drum TV with all the details. Rapper KRS-One was the center of attention when he spoke in Harlem this week, accepting a proclamation from the city declaring Hip Hop Appreciation Week. He also participated in an international peace conference at the United Nations. In the Afro Times, once again the Harlem community embraced the celebration of Malcolm X's birthday last Saturday. There was some controversy over how best to honor the slain leader. Some businesses chose to close, others did not. We bring you full coverage later in the program. Now, in its 24th season, Dance Africa will return to the Brooklyn Academy of Music this weekend. It is the largest festival of African dance in the United States. Civil rights veteran and Georgia Congressman John Lewis will be honored with a special Profile in Courage Award for Lifetime Achievement by the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. Summer is just around the corner, bringing the third annual Harlem Book Fair with it. There are books for adults and for kids, panel discussions, workshops, and authors and poets reading from their works. It's an event you won't find anywhere else. Listen as Krell K.O. Charles gives us a taste of what's in store.
Shakespeare was writing sonnets and Beethoven had an epiphany, played the bongo on the Congo and called it a symphony. And when I said there were 9 planets, when I said there were 9 planets, when I said there were 9 planets, they all looked at me and laughed. I said, I read that in my textbook. Count them. Do the math. Besides, this book cost me an arm and a leg. It's the top of the line. Check out this fine design, this spine of mine. First published in 1969. Shakespeare said, I don't mean to offend my lord, but my lord, you must be ill. Can't you see this book is written with some technological quill? I said, what trickery is this? Must you play me for some buffoon? I knew there were 9 planets since man landed on the moon. So if there are not 9 planets, tell me, how do we know? That's when they all pointed at the 10th planet. It was right behind Pluto. So don't tell me there's no life on Mars, and even worse, this universe. I am a child, my mind runs wild. Don't feed me information that is rehearsed. Let me question the unquestionable. Do not stifle what I say, because this is what's limiting our children today. How do we know, Professor? Tell me, how do we know?
According to the National Osteoporosis Foundation, osteoporosis is a major public health threat. 10% of African American women over age 50 have osteoporosis. 30% more have low bone density, putting them at high risk for breaking bones or for spinal fractures. Uptown talked with Dr. Carolyn Becker at New York Presbyterian's Tony Stabile Center for the Prevention and Treatment of Osteoporosis.
Osteoporosis is a situation in which there is too little bone and it is damaged at the microscopic level, and that usually occurs over time with aging or with certain medications such as steroids or other detrimental medications. So osteoporosis leads to very fragile bone that can lead to fractures with minimal trauma, so that people who are bending over in bed or go to lift up a window or get hugged by someone can fracture a rib or can fracture their spine. Osteoporosis really begins in childhood and in teenage years. In many ways, it is a pediatric disease. And by the time we reach age 30, we have the skeleton we're going to have for the rest of our lives, and the rest is all downhill. We start to lose bone after age 30 or 35. Many of our young girls, teenage girls, and even women in their 20s, 30s, and above, are substituting sodas, whether diet sodas or regular sodas, for milk. But sodas are detrimental to bone. Without vitamin D, you can get severe form of osteoporosis called osteomalacia, which is a real softening of the bones. The calcium and other minerals do not get into the bone because of lack of vitamin D. We also find it, interestingly, in African American patients because their skin makes lower levels of vitamin D. So it is not that uncommon to find an African American person who has a low vitamin D level. We see many women of different ethnic groups and races who have osteoporosis. Other factors include anyone who has a low calcium intake, who doesn't drink milk as a child, who avoids dairy products, can have osteoporosis because they don't provide enough calcium for their skeleton to maintain a healthy density. People who have lactose intolerance represent a special group of at-risk patients for osteoporosis. There are other ways to get dairy products in your diet other than through drinking milk. But you have to make an effort. You need to look for soy products, lactate products, yogurt, and then green vegetables have calcium. Broccoli has a lot of calcium. Kale has a lot of calcium. Salmon with the bones, sardines, tofu. These are other foods that are very calcium rich in terms of preventing osteoporosis. Would be number 1, to never smoke. Number 2, to maintain adequate calcium and vitamin D levels throughout their life. And number 3, I would say at the time of menopause, women need to assess their bone health in some way.
Imagine walking down the street and your bones start to crumble. Well, this is happening right now to half the women in America. It's called osteoporosis. It starts in your 30s. Your bones lose their density and their strength. They become brittle. They break easily. But there is good news about osteoporosis. You don't have to get it. You can treat it. You can beat it. Just see your doctor to find out how. Now.
In what many call the heartbeat of the African diaspora, 125th Street, the Harlem State Office building, a very special event took place on Saturday, May 19th. On stage, the Daughters of Malcolm X, along with members of the Harlem community, gathered to honor the birthday of El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. Minister Malcolm X would have been 76 years old. Uptown brings you live coverage of the event.
Most of the stores are still open for that hour. However, we are all acknowledging this legacy like we were asked to do so.
Don't believe in fighting today in any one front, but on all fronts. In fact, I'm a black nationalist freedom fighter.
The celebration began with a symbolic call-out involving drummers and members of the Harlem community. The individuals walked in a silent procession from 4 sites in Harlem, with all meeting in front of the Harlem State Office building. Now, let's go to our reporter, Michelle Robinson, who was at one of the sites.
Hi, I'm Michelle Robinson, and I'm here live at 125th and 5th Avenue, where these marchers are assembling to honor Malcolm X.
Must be a continuum for the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. Malcolm stood for peoplehood. He stood for unity. He stood for spirit. He stood for grace. He stood for economic development. He stood for the power that is inside all of us. And so we must continue that legacy forever and ever, worlds without end. We do it every year, but this year it's very important because it's a silent vigil and there's power in silence.
And his legacy is still here for us, and we have to come out and be here physically to show our support and, I'm saying, honor his memory.
I'm in celebrating the Malcolm X Day. I was in the mosque with Minister Malcolm X.
And I'm here today in the spirit of him because I think that his work and his teaching should be carried on among our young people.
Well, this is a historic celebration, first of all. I'm part of the December 12th movement. We've been honoring Malcolm X for the past 12 years right here in this spot. This year, because there are so many new stores up here, the corporations on 125th Street are moving to co-opt our historic celebration, and that's what you see here. This is all bought and paid for by Harlem USA, Disney, Con Edison, all of this is Chase Manhattan Bank are paying for this while the grassroots people built this for 12 years. That's why we're angry. We're going to shut down the stores today. We're going to continue the tradition. The tradition is we march up and down 125th Street. We shut down all the stores in honor of Malcolm X.
Today marks the 76th birthday of Malcolm X, a civil rights leader. Here in the community of Harlem, many people are commemorating his birthday by closing down their businesses for an hour. With new businesses in town such as Old Navy and Starbucks, many people think this ceremony is making a mockery of a great leader.
Our father was many things to many people.
From the man whom we are honoring.
Next we have
This is the first year that the Daughters of Malcolm X, along with the 125th Street BID and local businesses, have taken the lead to organize this celebration. The Shabazz daughters and many of the speakers who took center stage shared their personal experiences with Malcolm X, as well as the need to remember and carry on his philosophies.
As the children of Minister Malcolm X, we have a legacy to uphold, which has not been easy. We have been extremely fortunate through the years to have a core group of people that have supported us and protected us unconditionally.
I am the historian and biographer of Malcolm X, and I've been assisting the family over the last year and a half to put together an archive of Brother Malcolm. Well, Malcolm used to say that the greatest and the most productive element of education is the sense of history. We made history here today because by honoring the children of Malcolm X, by honoring the best among ourselves, that we have motivated and given role models to children so that our children can understand that Malcolm should not be viewed from on high on a pedestal, but rather Malcolm lives within us.
Things would have been different had he lived. Yes, I think he would have been a great force in this community, but not just this community, in this nation, in this world. If you listen to some of Minister Malcolm's speeches today, you see he transcends time.
This is the first year that the Business Improvement District has become a part of this celebration. What I'm pleased with is the fact that the community and the business community came together this year for the first time in an effort to celebrate the life and legacy of Malcolm X.
Significant to honor Malcolm on his death day than his birthday, because his birthday is just insignificant. The reason that he died is what is so important, because it was the ideals and the work that he espoused that caused him to die.
I just hope that they understand, they learn about Malcolm X and what his message was, and we hope that by those coming today, that perhaps they may be influenced by Malcolm and his life and his legacy.
I can't really describe Malcolm in a sentence. Just can't. It was a great event today. The community was involved. It was community and self-empowerment.
Of course, the event was not without controversy, and many of those present shared the ways in which Malcolm X has influenced their lives.
Malcolm grew up in my era, and it's a personal thing to me. He gave me back my manhood, and he gave a lot of young men up to today their manhood, show them that they are a man and they can stand up to anyone with no apology. He also made me into a successful businessman through his idea of independence, prosperity, peace, and security through self-reliance.
And I shall never forget that experience. We were, like campaigning. And then the person whom I was with, Louis Lomax, whom you know was a famous writer, he said to me, "Betty Jean, go over there. That man is Malcolm X." And he said, "Go over and ask him if he will help us move a desk from our office to Long Island." And I went over, and the most beautiful man that I suppose I've ever seen, his countenance was so wonderful, and his persona, as he said, How can I help you, sister?
Malcolm X spoke of many ways to empower the community. The most important point, however, was the need to prepare and nurture the community's future, which rests in the hands of the youth. Our reporter, Benjamin Lee, has more on that story.
In honoring Malcolm X, today's ceremony focuses on life's most precious gift, the children. And it is Malcolm X's daughters, along with several other Harlem-based organizations, who recognize and celebrates Harlem's youth.
Malcolm, we remember you. Al-Haj Malik Shabazz, we remember you. Al-Haj Malik Shabazz, we remember you.
Our Children's Foundation is one of the youth organizations also participating in this event.
I think it was very important to honor Malcolm X. He was a very famous and important civil rights leader. He made a very important struggle for us as kids of the future, and I think that it was very brave of what he did.
He's a good man.
Why is Malcolm X special to you?
Because he looked just like a scientist. He did a good thing for us. Sometimes he thought that fighting would be right if it was necessary.
As you can see, the event now over, Malcolm X's daughters, as well as many other speakers, stress the need for empowering today's youth to excel and become leaders striving for excellence. For Drum Television, Uptown, I'm Benjamin Lee.
Thanks, Benjamin. The memory of Malcolm X was honored in many ways. Today, it is the voices of his daughters and the Harlem community, along with its youth, who chose to remember Malcolm X, not for the reasons and manner of his death, but for the hopes and aspirations his words have instilled in the hearts and minds of many.
I don't believe in fighting today in any one front, but on all fronts. In fact, I'm a black nationalist freedom fighter.
Former President Bill Clinton is all set to move his offices into 125th Street this July. We asked passers-by if they thought his presence would be good for Harlem or not. Here's what they said on our 125th Street Soapbox.
I feel Clinton coming to Harlem is going to help Harlem. I mean, Harlem is an area that's blowing up. I mean, so if you own property or if you can't buy property and you're African American, you should get down too. I mean, follow his lead. He was the president, he's smart, so get down with Clinton and come to Harlem and hold it down.
In the long run, it might help. You know, I mean, what harm can he bring? They already raising the price of all the stores and the rent and stuff, so him coming here is not going to stop, not going to change that in the least bit.
I think in my opinion, it would hurt Harlem. I'm all for Clinton moving in here. There's nothing wrong with bringing in more prosperity into a community. It doesn't mean that they're going to take away from the black community in any way. I think it would benefit the black community here in Harlem in a lot of ways.
It's a good thing because he did a lot for us blacks while he was president, so why shouldn't he help the community now that he's in the black community?
Well, I'm actually against Clinton moving to Harlem. I'm with an organization called the International Socialist Organization, and I feel that Clinton moving here, he's basically coming in as sort of to beef up the empowerment zone. It was his big policy in 1993, the empowerment zone, which is displacing a lot of people's families, black working class families that live in this community. And, you know, I'm against the empowerment zone. I think it displaces a lot of, I think it displaces a lot of families. It's basically pushing out people who, you know, have been living here for decades and not giving anybody jobs, or if it is, it's pretty low paying jobs like at the Harlem USA Mall. So I just think he's doing it as a political mover to come in here and, you know, to show something that he really didn't give credence to, like making real jobs or giving real health care to people. and I'm just against it. So.
They think Clinton would help Harlem because money would come here. You know, it would I know it would improve the environment around here, the way of living.
In a way, I kind of feel sorry for a lot of the guys who are out here trying to make a living on the streets. I mean, it's their livelihood, and I'm afraid that if Clinton probably did move to Harlem, there'd be some cleaning up to do, and it'd probably start right here on the street corners, unfortunately. So, in a way, I think it would hurt Harlem, definitely.
Personally, I think Bill Clinton is a good asset for New York City. Really, I think he should become mayor. You know, I mean, all right, he made a few mistakes, but he was one of the best presidents we've had. In the whole 8 years that he ran this country, he kept a strong economy, and he has been fair to people racially.
I think it would help. Anything that can be brought in here to generate a little business or culturally, I'm all for it.
It's gonna help Harlem. Clinton half black. Feel me? Clinton half black. He been helping us since day one. I love that man. And just because whatever he did, they want to impeach him. That's stupid. I could have did it and nobody would have ever give a damn about it.
Well, personally, I think it's a scam, him moving here. It's just a PR. He actually won't spend any time in here anyway, and probably he'll be moved out. So I think it's all a sham.
That's it for this week's show. We hope you enjoyed watching Uptown as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Check out our website for more information on tonight's stories. Let us know what you think of Uptown and what you'd like to see on upcoming shows. We'd love to hear from you, and we especially want to know what you think about our 125th Street Soapbox. You'll find us on 125th Street and 7th Avenue every Saturday afternoon. Good night. I'm your host, Marcia Fingal. We'll see you next week and every week at this same time. And remember, Uptown is a state of mind.
Dining at Ruby's is a treat. We welcome you. We ask you to be hungry. Uptown is a state of mind. So please join us at Ruby's anytime that you're in Harlem or think of eating some good, healthy food. We welcome your visit to us. Thank you.